Hi, this is Ross with Horizon Web Marketing, and today we're going to do another one of our series of reviews on SEO checkers. An SEO checker is kind of a broad term. We could say an SEO website analyzer, an SEO checkup tool, basically a tool that helps you to be able to do an analysis on your own web page in order to improve it from an SEO perspective. What I've done here on screen is I've done a quick Google search on SEO Checker, and we're going to pick the first one that comes up here, which is Neal Patel's SEO Analyzer. Now, if any of you are familiar with Neal Patel, he's a really big name in digital marketing, has been extremely successful. Tends to come up in any market that he targets. He tends to come up really well in search results. So he definitely knows what he's doing from an SEO perspective. So let's pay attention to his tool and see what sort of insights it can give for us on a test website. Now I'm going to go over here to the test website we're using, which is called Artisans of Colorado. And this particular website has not been SEO optimized. As a matter of fact, it's pretty much not been maintained for a number of years. So it's a good starting point. If I were to, let's say I were someone who was taking over this website and wanted to be able to do an SEO check on it, this might be my first step. That having been said, we're going to go back over here to where we pulled up Neal Patel's SEO Analyzer and search results. I'm going to right click, open that up in a new tab. And this is the introductory screen that you'll get. Now, a good thing about the SEO Analyzer, it does not ask you for an email address in order to perform the analysis, and so that's great. A little bit more privacy, a little less bother. You will find if you come here and you haven't been here before, you will have a number of pop-up requests for you to subscribe, and they can be just a little bit annoying, but it's a small price to pay. So let me go over here and grab the URL for Artisans of Colorado. And I'm going to go ahead and plug it into Neal Patel's SEO Analyzer. Go ahead and click Analyze Website and see what it comes up with here. And what it will do typically is it will go through and generate a report. Now as I scroll down here, I'll see that below the fold there was a progress bar, which is already done. And then I have a number of tabs that take me to different reports for this URL. The one we're going to be looking at here is Website Analyzer. There's also a competitor analysis and a keywords tool, but we're not going to spend much time with them. This is the one we want. Now, first thing it's going to give you is some top-level metrics. And so on the left, you'll see a page-level SEO score. It rates this site as a C-. It's basically a 19-point check. And what it tells me is that I've passed 14 of those checks and 5 of them were problematic. So those problematic areas are then linked to with this button here that says 5 SEO recommendations. Now, it does cover some of the important points. When I click down to the SEO analysis, it will look at things. I'm going to go over here to the past column to show you some of the things that it's going to analyze. On the left, you'll see a number of different things that will analyze what's called the title tag or the title of the website. Also, meta description tags. It's going to check to see whether the site was blocked by a robots.txt. It's also going to take a look at how your URLs are formatted in order to see whether any of them might give trouble to search engine crawlers, those things that come and visit your website on behalf of the search engine. It's also going to check to see if there's any elements here with regard to flash or iframes. Those are elements that might also hinder search engines from getting a good view of the page. It's going to give you some interesting comments about whether your meta description tag is too long or too short. It's going to say, okay, it's great, we found some heading tags, and so on and so forth. Now, there are a few things that are missing here. For one thing, it says heading tags were found. What I don't like is the fact that it doesn't really differentiate between heading tags. Now, if you know what a heading tag, it's typically in HTML, it's indicated as a H1 or H2 or H3. And an H1, for example, is far more important from an SEO perspective. It should be unique on the page. Let's say an H3 is not really that important from an SEO perspective, and you can have numerous ones on the page. So having just one check for all of those tags is not really that thorough, but it does cover some of the basics here. Now let me go to warnings, and it's going to tell me here, this is where it's taking a look at another one of those heading tags, an H2. And it's going to point out that there are a number of them, but they have very few characters, so it's giving me some advice, and it's overall pretty good advice here. What it should be telling me is there is no H1 tag on this page, and so that's something that would be useful to know. On the errors, it's going to tell me that the meta description is missing, and that is a very legitimate call. Meta description tag is something that does appear in search results, and it's not a ranking factor. In other words, having a good meta description tag won't help you rank higher, but it will identify your page in a search results context so that someone who's searching for you will see what the page is about before they click. Often that can help you get better traffic and also will encourage people to click on your listing in a search result. Let's go back up here and take a look at this other metric that's a top level metric, the page level speed score. Now, the one thing that is just a little bit frustrating about this is there's not a consistency. In other words, for the SEO score, I have a letter grade that gives me an idea. For the speed score, I have a numeric number that doesn't really mean a whole lot to me. If I go down to the recommendations right here, 12 speed recommendations, the first thing it does is it shows me a content analysis. Now, I would tend to think if you are not a web developer, if you're less technical of a person, this is not going to mean a whole lot to you because it's basically breaking down here, well, how much is, how much of the load of your website is dependent upon scripts versus CSS versus HTML and other elements and so forth. I think again, for a neophyte, and I think this tool is primarily targeted at a neophyte, someone who's just getting into SEO, it's not that useful. Now we can go over here to the full report, and we can see that it gives me more detail. But again, this detail also is going to be cryptic to me unless I'm more technically oriented. Finally, if I go to the Web Performance tab, it finally does give me a grade. I'm wondering why this letter grade doesn't show up where I pointed out that the numeric grade showed up before. And in this case, it gives a very bad score, D+, so almost a fail on this particular page. And so basically these are things that you may not know what to do with, but it is useful in the sense that if you're, let's say you're analyzing your page and you have someone else who's done your website for you, or you have a technical person on staff, then you can provide them this information in order to give them a clue as to how to make the page better performing. Let me go back up and we'll continue taking a look at the SEO Analyzer. So here we are back at this point, and you may have noticed that whenever I click on one of these buttons here, it doesn't take me to a new page. It takes me down, lower down on this page. So basically we're going to be looking at a pretty long page here. Now this is fairly useful in the sense it gives me page level screenshot. The orange line identifies what's called the fold. In other words, below this line, the average person viewing this on a desktop is going to have to scroll down to see it. And so the advice here is good advice. The important elements should be above this fold in order to try to persuade customers to take action. If I click here on tablet, or let me go over and click on phone, what it'll do is it'll give me an indication of what the site would look like on a telephone screen. And this is a good visual representation of the whole concept nowadays that's so important of making your site mobile friendly. And if I take a look at it from this point, it's not really that mobile friendly because the majority of what appears on a handheld device is basically white space. So I would need to turn this back over to my development team and say, hey, the telephone version is not that mobile friendly. Now, this doesn't give me a lot of technical details, which many SEO checkup tools do, but it gives me the main thing that I need, and that is to see how my website looks on a mobile device. So let's keep going down here, and we already took a look at this before, the page level SEO analysis. And now we'll drop down to one of the key components of successful SEO, and that is the backlinks to your site. Now this backlinks counter here, I find to be just a little bit uninformative because it tells me that I have 8 backlinks. But then it says websites that link back to artisansofcolorado.com. So my question is, all right, is this websites that link back to me, or is it links? Now, here's the difference between this. If one website has on 4 different pages a link to Artisans of Colorado, normally that would be counted as 4 links and 1 referring domain. And a referring domain basically means, hey, this website as a whole is linking to your website. So this doesn't identify whether it's a website or whether it's links, so it's leaving out a key detail. Not only that, it says that link back to artisansofcolorado.com, so it also doesn't tell me whether this means that the websites are linking to my entire domain or just this particular URL. The one other thing that I do need to point out is this number here, 8 links, does not match with what other services are showing about Artisans of Colorado as a website. Majestic shows Artisans as having 173 links, I believe, from 25 referring domains. Moz, another widely respected service, is showing that there's several thousand links back to Artisans of Colorado. So this would definitely need a little bit of clarification before I could trust that number. On the right, we see a number of index pages, and this is something of a disappointment to me because it appears to be broken. It's telling me there's 0 indexed pages. Now, indexed pages is a good way to keep track of how big of a footprint your site has in Google's search index. If you have a lot of pages indexed, there's more opportunities for you to rank. And the easy way to be able to find that out is doing something we call a site search. So I'm going to type in here, site Artisans of Colorado.com. Tell me what Google says. Well, Google tells me that they have 7,800 results. That would be 7,800 URLs in their index. So why does this report 0? And I would tend to think that probably this is just a temporary problem, and I'm sure the developers that work for Neal Patel are going to be fixing this in the near future. But if it says 0 for your site and it doesn't seem to match your experience, you might need to check into that a bit more. Finally, we have a keywords matrix, and this is pretty typical for SEO checkup tools. What it does is some artificial intelligence goes across the page, takes a look at single words, in this case also at 2-word phrases and 3-word phrases, and then it will say, okay, well, how many times does this word or this phrase appear on the page? And then does it appear in these critical SEO elements? Does it appear in the title? Does it appear in the meta description tag? Does it appear in one of the header tags? And so in a way, this is pretty good because it does give you an idea of sort of where the keywords are showing up, what keywords are used. Here again, though, I would want this to be a little bit different in the sense that this H here could refer to an H1 or an H2 or an H3 or an H4, and those have dramatically different SEO values. So typically I would want to see whether my keyword phrase appears in the H1 or H2, and I wouldn't worry about H3, H4, some of these other H tags. So it's just a little bit too broad there. Now the other thing that I do need to point out is I think this is more useful for the single word phrases or the 2-word phrases perhaps, but when I take a look at the 3-word phrases, some of them aren't really spot on. Like I took a look at this one here as an example, right place artisans. Now, That doesn't sound like it makes sense to me at all. So I went over here back to this site, Artisans of Colorado. I did a Control F, which is find on page, and typed in right place. You can see it at the top right, and it'll highlight where that's found. And here I can see what it's doing. It's basically, for some reasons, it's picking this up, this right place, period, space, artisans, and then up here again, right place, period, new paragraph, artisans. In both cases, it's identifying it as something of an important keyword phrase. So I don't know that I would trust too much to particularly the 3-word phrases as they appear in this grid. Finally, we have page level SEO recommendations. And there's just a few here that you might actually need to research in order to make sense of. Like, for example, this one here, we found links with the rel nofollow attribute on them. Well, do you know what that is? If you're a seasoned SEO professional, you undoubtedly do. But if you're a person who's just starting to investigate SEO, you probably don't. And so some of these things you're going to read and you're going to say, what in the world is going on? And at that point, you would need to do some self-education in order to make this really perform well for you. Overall, I would say this is as a tool goes, is fairly basic. It's got a couple of issues, so not necessarily a very thorough tool, but it does give you a quick look at some interesting metrics that are important, and it does it without demanding your email address. So overall, I would say this is probably, if I gave a letter grade to the SEO checker here that we're reviewing, which is the SEO Analyzer, I would probably rate this as a C. Middle of the road. You're definitely going to just use it as a starting point, and if you're serious about optimizing your site, you're going to need to dig deeper and also do some more self-education. And so when it comes to self-education, this is my chance to always put in a plug for the learning resources we make available online, the Horizon Web Marketing Academy. And you'll see a link on the screen for the address for Horizon Web Marketing Academy. And also take a look in the description below this video. You'll also find a link there. We have a number of self-education resources that are free of charge, and that can help you to be better able to take advantage to other free tools like Neal Patel's SEO Analyzer online. So I hope this has been useful. My name is Ross Barefoot with Horizon Web Marketing, and I hope to see you here for the next one.